Kris Tyson seems to be up in the ringer again for controversy and as well as allegations thrown towards them. And this time, these kind of allegations seem to be very damning and pretty much career ruining, if we're being honest here. Now, pretty much, it was alleged that Kris Tyson was being an alleged predator or acting in a very predatory type way towards a minor back in the day. And apparently, the way they came into contact was that the kid won a giveaway and then pretty much came into contact with Mr. Beast and the rest of the crew, as well as Kris Tyson at that time. But before we go more into that, I think it's important to also cover the other allegations that Kris Tyson has been going through as well. Now, these allegations has pretty much surfaced a few months ago, from my understanding. I know the certain person who pretty much brought forth the current allegations also brought up the older allegations, which is pretty much alleging that Kris is a lolicon. Now, please keep in mind, I have to say allegedly here for this case, but I'm not really going to hold back in terms of my belief on what they actually are with the way I say, but I will have to say allegedly for just in case reasons, obviously. But the prior allegations was pretty much stating that Kris Tyson was a lolicon for pretty much being involved or having some sort of connection to an artist named as Shadman. Now, for those of you who've been on the internet for a very long time, Shadman is a very notorious or infamous artist that's been on many platforms for a very long time. The reason why he's so infamous is because he would pretty much create art depicting children in very inappropriate ways. And the connection between Shadman and Kris Tyson was the interactions between the two. Kris Tyson would seem to interact a lot with the content that Shadman would promote or pretty much publish. Now, mainly the kind of interactions we can see was just the ones on Twitter. It does get really suspicious when you look more into it and see how far the interactions go back. Some might say it was just some sort of edgy humor back in the day, or it was just kind of like that was the humor of the time. However, I'm inclined to disagree with this sentiment for two reasons. One, I don't think a lot of people during that time would kind of joke about stuff like that, or even kind of like any kind of content near that stuff. I think the reason why people kind of defended Shadman or lacked Shadman during that time was just because of the fact that Shadman was just an edgy person. And two, making jokes about that a few times is one thing, but making jokes like that or kind of interacting with the content several times, and as well as commissioning art from Shadman and hanging up it in your house, is something different altogether. Kris Tyson would pretty much commission art from Shadman, hang it up in his house, and then there's an old Mr. Beast video where you can even see it in the background of one of Kris Tyson's walls. So now let's go into the current allegations that are being brought up. A channel named Prison 42 released a video, I believe not too long ago. I believe it was pretty much just the other day as of me recording this, going over an allegation talking about how Kris Tyson would have weird interactions with someone who I believe to be 13 or 14 at the time. And throughout the whole video from Prison 42, he would go throughout the whole timeline talking about where it all first began, as well as to how it ended or to recent events. Now, one thing that needs to be mentioned here is that it's never really stated or confirmed whether or not Kris Tyson has done any sort of physical action towards the kid. This is even said within the video from Prison 42. The only thing we have is pretty much the inappropriate conversations between Kris Tyson and the 13-year-old kid. They'll pretty much have conversations, pretty much banter with one another regarding like Kris's hentai addiction for some reason. And there will be a lot more interactions between the 13-year-old boy and Kris Tyson. Now, the point that Prison 42 really tries to drive home within the video is that it's very inappropriate for someone of Kris Tyson's age at that time to be interacting that way with someone who's 13 years old. He even makes a claim that it's inappropriate altogether to be even talking to someone that young, pretty much stating that he has no business to be kind of interacting with somebody who's that young. Now, I'm inclined to believe the sentiment. The way that they would talk or interact with each other, the edgy kind of jokes they'd be throwing around, or the edgy banter they would have with each other, it's very inappropriate for somebody that's a lot older to be having with somebody that's 13 years old. Why are you talking about your hentai collection as someone who's 20 plus years old with someone that's a teenager or a minor? Now, one interesting thing that came out of this whole controversy, which is still blowing up right now, is that the alleged victim himself, the 13-year-old boy at the time, came out on Twitter and pretty much stated that there was nothing going on or nothing physical happened between them. In fact, he's ended up defending Kris Tyson, saying that there was just jokes between the two at the time and they just had like a very dark humor. Keemstar will come out with a tweet stating that Mr. Beast put him in contact with the alleged victim of Kris Tyson, stating that he never met Kris by himself, and when he did meet Kris, he was with his family and as well as with the Mr. Beast crew altogether. He was also state that he was not groomed by Kris Tyson. And he also stated that he ran pretty much just a Discord server for Kris Tyson at the age of 13, and there was some inappropriate edgy jokes said at the time. What does this mean altogether? Putting the puzzles together, putting the pieces together, what does this mean for Kris Tyson? Are they a predator or not? Well, if we were pretty much to agree with the alleged victim here, then that would mean that Kris Tyson is not a predator, but is a very weird and strange individual. Now, I would agree to the fact that Kris Tyson is a lolicon, which is still pretty much fucking bad. I think they're both on equal footing in my opinion. When I was making this video, pretty much looking over all the stuff that was going on about it, I was kind of having the conclusion that I didn't want to call Kris Tyson a pedophile at all, just because of the fact, alleged victim here, that nothing bad happened between the two. There was no physical contact, no pretty much inappropriate contact. It was just inappropriate and jokes said to one another or inappropriate banter. However, because of the Shadman stuff, this is really where my opinion starts to change. I just feel like this cannot be looked over, and it's very strange to me. I think what it does say though is that I do think that Kris Tyson is pretty much a lolicon, which is very bad, very some degenerate type shit. But does it make them a pedophile? I feel like it probably does, in my opinion. See, a few months ago when the whole Vosh shit came out about Vosh leaking his porn folder, and all it was just pretty much just lolicon, right? I went on the internet and I pretty much looked through the whole situation of Vosh and his whole folder leakage, and came to the conclusion that this fool was pretty much a pedo. And it wasn't just because he leaked his whole porn folder, but it was also because of the fact that he himself would pretty much defend child pornography. And the way he would defend himself too when he leaked the folder and people would call it lolicon was just very fucking weird and very off. So I felt inclined to call him a pedophile just because of that. I feel like this has to be done to the same thing to Kris Tyson as well. It was not just the fact of liking Shadman's content, but as well as some of the tweets they did, and as well as just interacting with Shadman and commissioning art from Shadman himself. It's just fucking weird and degenerate. But there might be some people online in the internet who pretty much just say, but it's just Shadman, it's just Shadman, it's just dark edgy humor, right? Dark edgy humor. But constantly doing this on a consistent basis, it's just weird and strange. I'm intrigued to how this is going to play out. I don't really know how you could defend that, or if there's any actual real way to defend yourself from this, because it seems pretty hard cut and dry that you were doing some weird stuff or you were into some weird stuff. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the video itself from Prison 42, because it seems to be kind of also from a strange person, not in the sense of like a weirdo to liking kids or anything, but as to the sense of it coming out and publishing the video. It seems that Prison was under kind of some sort of pressure to upload the video at a certain time.
I just want to ask a question. So I just want to ask, did you have to rush out the video because of Mike Clum's EDP video?
Yes.
So now not only did you say that you couldn't talk about the issues that you were involved in,
Yes.
but what you just did right there is imply something.
It also seemed that he was trying to get in contact with Christian and EDP 456 in order for them to break the news, as he did not want to break the news himself, but he was trying to get in contact with them so they could break the news instead, which is very fucking weird because one, Christian is a rapist and as well as a mentally ill person. My understanding, they suffer from like a very high tier of autism, which makes it very hard for them to navigate through the world and pretty much understand stuff and how to handle things. So I don't know why that would be the case, but that's just a rumor. However, what is confirmed is the whole EDP 456 shit. Why would you want to have a pedophile pretty much break the news about possible pedophilic tendencies of another famous person? It makes no sense, and to me, that seems to be pretty fucking retarded to do something like that. But yeah, that's not everything about the whole allegations towards Christian. There's a lot that I overlooked, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot that I did not bring up in this video. Overall, I think it's fucking weird. I do think this really does paint Kris as a pedophile, in my opinion, just based off the whole Shadman and the whole tweets. And one of the reasons why I'm inclined to do this is because they never really made any statements about them disavowing Shadman or kind of disavowing that kind of quote-unquote humor back in the day. And when it comes to the whole alleged victim that was a 13-year-old boy and Kris Tyson, I feel like that's also a very icky and weird situation, just because the conversations between the two was very inappropriate. I don't know why an adult would be having those kind of conversations with a child in the first place. But as of right now, it doesn't really prove anything that Kris has done any kind of predatory actions towards a child, just because of the fact that from what we know so far, the 13-year-old boy never met Kris one-on-one by themselves. He also stated himself that he himself was not groomed, although we should keep in mind this news is pretty much still fresh and still breaking, so there still might be some more information that can come out to either disprove what I said about the 13-year-old boy or to kind of further prove of what I was stating. However, I still do believe the whole Shadman situation and the Shadman stuff is very fucking weird and should be either talked about or stated or pretty much brought up by Kris Tyson themselves, because the whole internet's going in an uproar for it. It's really painting them in a very bad light. One thing I feel like I should kind of bring up is that a lot of people are going to be kind of making this about like a transgender issue. I feel like a lot of people kind of bringing up the whole, might bring up the whole fact that, oh, this is what happens from the LGBTQ community, or this is probably kind of like some people already see some people stating that Kris Tyson pretty much set the trans community back by like 100 years or something. I feel like we need to ignore the whole trans thing and really look at the fact that Kris Tyson was doing some weird fucking shit to begin with. Like, the worst thing here is not trans issues. The worst thing here is pretty much Kris Tyson being an alleged predator, an alleged pedophile. I feel like we need to focus more on the allegation and pretty much put a lot of weight or pressure onto Kris Tyson in order for them to respond to the said allegations. And the moment we make it more about trans issues, the more we're going to be pretty much spitting at each other with as a community and going at each other's throats, because a lot of people who are talking about this situation do not agree with each other about trans rights or whatnot. But yeah, that's all I got right now about the whole situation. If anything big or huge happens, I will cover it. But this is pretty much all I have about the information right now, my thoughts about it. But yeah, also follow my Twitter. I just made a new Twitter, and I will probably just be shit posting and pretty much posting updates. There will be more videos coming out this week. I expect them to be 3 more videos plus this one that you're watching right now. One of them, surprisingly, is probably going to be about Boogie, because I think I heard Boogie did something crazy again. So yeah, we'll see about that. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe and like, and see ya.